the XP Realty, the beekeeping realtor. Excuse me. Something's got me all kind of just stuffy today. I'm allergic to something, so we might see a little bit more of that than usual. But today, well, not just today. Overall, we're going to be doing a whole new program. We're going to be looking at different niches of real estate every single month and explaining them at least at an entry level and going over tips, tricks, and everything you need to know. This month, we're going over short-term rentals, VRBOs, Airbnbs, that kind of stuff. And next month, we're going to be going over senior living for both downsizing, reverse mortgage, all that kind of fun stuff. So today, we're going to be looking at an entry level into Airbnb, VRBO, and everything you need to know to be successful and to get into the space. So before we talk about anything else, let's talk about why in the heck should you do an Airbnb or a VRBO? Well, it's going to vary from city to city, but I really like using the city of Thousand Oaks for my main example for Airbnb and VRBO here in Ventura County because it's one of the easier cities to do it in. So in Ventura County, or let's talk Thousand Oaks. In Thousand Oaks specifically, if you were to do a rental, like rent out a 3-bedroom, 2-bath house, your annual gross income, not net income, but gross income, would be in the neighborhood of like $67,000 on a $850,000 home. 7% interest rate, 20% down, all that kind of fun stuff, right? You're looking at around $67,000 of cash flow every year. When we compare that to an Airbnb, their annual cash flow for an average 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house is around $78,000, and a successful high-end top 10% of the 3-bedroom, 2-baths grows closer to $104,000. So it's not quite double, but it can be pretty close depending on how you run it. That's a huge difference, right? Am I doing that right? 3-bedroom, 78,000 average. Yeah. So, you can make a lot more money in terms of netting a lot more money doing a VRBO than you can by doing just a regular rental. So what's the catch? Well, it's basically running a hotel, a small 1-bedroom or 1-unit hotel, depending on how you're running this, right? But you are not, like with a rental, a lot of the time, you are going to like get the tenants in there. They're gonna have some complaints out the gate. You're gonna get a couple things fixed to make them happy. And then some people have tenants in their home for 10, 20, 30 years with practically no complaints. I mean, sure, you got to replace roofs every 30 years. Sure, there's going to be some normal maintenance, but you're not going to really get nitpicked and bothered super often by most tenants. Once they're moved in, most months you won't really hear from them unless something really crazy breaks or happens. When we compare that to a VRBO or short-term rental, we're going to be seeing a lot more of like people moving in and moving out after a day or 5 days. You got to keep the whole place furnished. We got to get it cleaned in between all our visitors, right? So it's a lot more work. But if you want the income, it can be worth it. Okay. So how in the world do we get into VRBOs? Well, the first thing we have to figure out is what is your goal? Okay. So, for some people, they want to hands off, not touch anything, hire a management company, and just generally have really good cash flow, not doing a single thing. And they really want that good cash flow. They're going to need a completely different deal from someone who just wants to have a second home, doesn't really need income on it, is okay managing it themselves. Or heck, I've seen some where people are renting out other rooms in their own home. So, figuring out your goal is going to be really, really important because you can't make the math work. You can't figure out if the deal makes sense unless you know how involved you want to be and what your comfort level is in general with this type of deal. Now, as we're looking at these, we don't just want to have a goal, but we want to have a strategy. Do we want to rent out a couple different rooms in a house? There are ways to maybe get a 5 or 6 bedroom house and rent out each of the rooms. Maybe you want to rent out a whole house. Maybe you want to rent out a guest house. There's all kinds of different ways to rent stuff out. So you need to identify how exactly you're going to be attacking this monster and what kind of deals and what kind of rentals you want to be responsible for and what kind you want to handle. Once you figure out a strategy, your next step is going to be to talk to a real estate agent or a lender. Usually, I kind of have it as a toss up here because most of the time, if you get a good lender, they can give you a good realtor that also knows stuff. On the same token, right? If you get a good realtor, they'll put you together with a good lender that also knows stuff. So you don't have to have a good team necessarily. You just need one good person that can help you put together your team. But either way, you want to find a lender and a real estate agent, and you want to figure out what you're pre-approved for and what kind of deals make sense in town. Okay. Now, just as a general rule, we're not going to get into this too into the weeds, but when it comes to your debt to income ratio, it's going to be the biggest thing we're going to be looking at when you are getting pre-approved. Whatever your income is, we really don't want you spending more than like 30 or 40% of your income on your debts. So let's say you make $10,000 a month. If you're spending $4,000 or $5,000 a month on your debts, you're probably not going to qualify for anything, okay, even though your income is high. So we want to try to keep your monthly debts below, technically it can be as high as 50%, but most of the time we want it below 30%. And all that money up to 30% is what we can comfortably spend on an investment, okay? So again, in the same example, if you have a $10,000 a month income, you can pretty comfortably spend around $3,000 a month on your mortgage and everything else involved, right? All of your debts combined. When you're selecting a real estate agent, if you are not connecting through a lender, you want to ask them a lot of questions, okay? You want to see how available they are. You want to see if they have any experience with VRBOs or rentals in general. You want to see if they know just generally anything about it. Now, this is a really, really tough thing to have a real estate agent know about because when we are dealing with VRBOs or short-term rentals, the problem is that every single city has different rules, okay? And their ordinances are changing constantly. So we have to be really mindful of like what the rules are. And we have to keep in mind that a lot of cities change the rules relatively frequently. And so you might end up in a situation where you are looking in the wrong city, or maybe the city that you're doing a VRBO in isn't viable anymore. So as we're asking our real estate agent questions, we want to ask them things, not necessarily like, do you know all of the ordinances in every city countywide, but we want to ask them questions like, do you know how rentals work? Do you know how Airbnb works? Are you familiar with how to do a cap rate calculation on this? A cap rate would be your return, right? So generally ask them some more in-depth, slightly higher level questions, see how responsive they are. If they seem to know what they're talking about, they're probably going to be leagues above most agents, because even me talking to other agents, I think that most agents have no idea how VRBOs even really work. And on top of that, you want to also keep in mind that the property managers for VRBOs do not have to be real estate agents. In fact, many of the best property managers for VRBOs and Airbnb are going to not be real estate agents at all, because technically it's a hospitality business. It's treated like a hotel rather than like a tenant in a real estate transaction. Now, when we are looking in terms of cities here in Ventura County, I really, really like Thousand Oaks, Newbury Park, Oxnard, and anything on the coast, okay? They tend to have the most relaxed regulations out of all the cities. Some cities, and it's kind of wishy-washy because sometimes ordinances are enforced and observed and sometimes they're really not. A lot of times they're only enforced when someone complains. For example, in the city of Camarillo, you're not supposed to be able to do short-term rentals at all. All rentals are supposed to be at least 1 month. But there's a lot of Airbnbs and VRBOs in Camarillo anyways. So it's generally not enforced, But if it is, that could really mess up your business plans, right? So if we have to pick an area in Ventura County, at least, I try to aim towards unincorporated areas. And so when I say unincorporated areas, what I mean is, where is our button here? Share screen. There we go. I'm going to just share this entire window. Share. So when we're talking unincorporated areas, what I really mean is, where we go? Here we go. This is the map of unincorporated areas. So if you're in that kind of, I don't know what you call that, salmon, red, pink, whatever area, your regulations are going to be much more relaxed than if you're in the normal colored kind of tan, yellowish areas, okay? And as we can see here in Thousand Oaks, there's several unincorporated areas. Moore Park has a little bit in here. Oxnard has a pretty significant chunk in Camarillo, kind of in this area. Not sure if that's Oxnard or Camarillo when we're talking that chunk there. Little bit of kind of like the Ventura, Oxnard areas too also are unincorporated. So in general, if we're unincorporated, if we're on the coast, we're going to have a much better time with the rules and regulations than if we're in the cities, because every city has their own ordinances on it. They're typically going to have city tax on top of everything else. And there's going to be all kinds of extra stuff that just makes your life miserable. So if you can help it, we want to aim for these unincorporated areas, which again, your real estate agent should be able to help you out with if you are trying to buy one. Usually what I do is I just make a search function for unincorporated Ventura County. And I spent a good chunk of time just drawing out this map more or less. So that anytime a home pops up in the unincorporated areas, we can see it. And then, of course, we filter for any other search parameters you have, like bedrooms, bathrooms, and what have you. So once you've picked a city, the next thing we're going to want to do is spy on our competition. So one of the easiest ways you can do this at little to no cost to you is to hop onto Airbnb. Most of the short-term rentals in Ventura County are on Airbnb. A couple are on VRBO instead. And we're going to look at your competition. So you want to look at, in general, how booked out are places? What are they renting for per night? You have to be a little bit nitpicky with this because it's looking at like 5 nights for this 3-bedroom for $2,400, right? I got a gnat here, it's bugging me. And we want to look at how they're doing. How are their pictures? How booked are they? What's their availability, right? You want to really get to know everything in your area and definitely look at all the photos, right? We want to see how are they marketing it? What's working for them? Now, if you are more savvy, you should get yourself a program called AirDNA. Or if you work with a realtor like me, you don't need to have AirDNA. You can just copy what I have and what I've done. But this is going to show you what the rental demand is like. Right now we're at 98. That means we have no vacant rentals basically, right? So Airbnbs are really popping off. Seasonality, 83. So again, we're very seasonal out here, especially this time of year in like June, July. And we can look at all of the data here. So you want to really do your homework and figure out what the prices are, what stuff is going for, all that kind of fun stuff. And if you have AirDNA, you can also look at what homes will probably make you. Granted, when we are using these programs to figure out prices and all that kind of fun stuff, keep in mind it's using an algorithm. Don't 100% count on the algorithm. Do some homework yourself, right? But if we are looking at, say, rentals here in Ventura County, here in Newbury Park, we have one for rent on 5 San Lucas, right? If I look up here, 5 San Lucas, is it on Rentalizer? I think it's Rentalizer. Yeah, if I look up Rentalizer for 5 San Lucas, we get an annual revenue of $111,000, average day rate of $415, right? So again, average revenue of $111,000. When we compare that to what they're asking, $4,000 a month, the difference is, what is that, 48 or 100? What do I do? The difference here is staggering. It's almost twice as much money, right? Let's say it's 112,000 because you're above average. minus 48,000, you could make an extra $64,000 a year by running it as an Airbnb. So, I mean, obviously, we're going to have to go over a lot of other expenses here and things to make it make sense, but you got to run your numbers, right? So, when we are doing our homework and, spinal competition, next point is analyzing deals. So, on that same note, analyzing these deals, we want to see, what's going on here. Now, there's a couple of really important things to keep in mind. I'm going to turn this off real quick. A couple of important things to really keep in mind when we're talking about Airbnbs and just generally short-term rentals. First of all, the property management fee is much, much, much higher. Okay, so property management in general, Ventura County wise, there's a lot of different companies that charge a lot of different prices. It's not that weird to see about 5% total of the money you're bringing in going towards your management fees. Now, when we're talking short-term rentals, most short-term rental management companies charge anywhere from 20 to 30%. Okay, so if you're paying someone else to do it, you need to keep in mind that even though the profit is much, much higher, you're going to spend a lot more just on management. On top of that, you need to get the whole place furnished, and not just furnished, because I know that everyone talks about furniture, but one of the main reasons that people will use an Airbnb is access to a kitchen and everything that else goes there, right? So we're not just talking furniture, we're talking cosmetic stuff to make it look pretty, we're talking pans, pots, all kinds of other stuff that will go in this home that is not just furniture. So when we're fully furnishing, we're not just furnishing, we're fully appliancing, we're fully everything like that. So, in general, we're going to expect our furnishing costs on a home to be anywhere from 10 to 20 bucks a square foot. I usually expect, especially for people doing their first Airbnb, I expect it to be somewhere between 15 and 25. A lot of the time when people are doing their first Airbnb, they tend to spend a little more because they're really excited. And a lot of the time when you are on your 10th or so Airbnb, people have a habit of really dialing back and keeping it more simple. But don't mess up your math here when you're thinking about buying it. You're like, oh my gosh, look how much money I can make. And then you're getting, a 2,000 square foot home, and you're going to end up spending, 10 or 20,000 bucks to renovate it, to get it clean, and then maybe another 40,000 bucks on just furniture and making it all nice, right? A lot of things to also keep in mind when you are setting these up is that you're going to be doing a lot with renovations, just basic things to make it so that your life is easier. You don't want to use keys to get in and out. Lock boxes are cool, but ideally you want to use a coded doorknob so that then you don't have to go and mess with that as often. If there's a problem, sometimes you can unlock the door remotely, and just all kinds of things like that. So the expenses to get this up and running are going to be much, much higher. So once you kind of analyze this deal and figure out what you want to get, the next step is to buy a home. Now, I'm not going to go too in depth into what it takes to buy a home. It's really not that complicated. You need to go through all the basic steps we cover in every other video here. If you are thinking about buying a home, look at the other videos. We go through all the steps in depth. But it's really nothing too crazy and complicated. It's just buying a home. And on the investment side, it tends to be much more relaxing and much less high strung than it is when you're buying a home for yourself, because we're trying to make money here. We're not trying to make it perfect and make it where we're going to stay, right? Another thing to keep in mind when we are looking at cities and areas and stuff like that is going to be local knowledge and local things that people are using Airbnbs for. If we are looking at Airbnbs on the coast, beach houses, right? People want to be on the beach. Those are pretty hot right now. And what you'll notice when we look at Airbnbs, let me bring this up one more time. Let's just share this whole window. Share. When we look at Airbnbs, how do I switch this? I'm not always in love with Airbnb's search function. Ventura County, Calico County, I can. So when we look at, let's see, search. When we look at the whole county on Airbnb, you'll notice that there are Airbnbs everywhere. A little bit less in Camarillo, again, because of the restrictive rules, but they are all over. So why are people getting so many Airbnbs in, say, Newbury Park and Oxnard? Well, a lot of people are getting Airbnbs because they are traveling for work in some way. A lot of people prefer to get Airbnbs rather than getting a suite. And a lot of people are working as traveling nurses with sports teams and all kinds of other stuff in town. So just because a town isn't a resort town in our county, that doesn't mean you should count it out. There's all kinds of different levels of income out here with all kinds of different needs, from people coming out and visiting sick family to, again, working professionals that want a place to rent for 3 months because they have a 3-month traveling nurse contract. So pretty much everywhere is viable. You don't have to worry too much about it being a resort town or being a vacation thing. Now, keep in mind, look at all the ones on the beach, right? The ones on the beach are super popular, but that doesn't have to be the case. So don't kill yourself over that looking for it. All right. So once you find a place and you get the home, again, we got to get it furnished like we were just talking about. We need to get it beautiful. You got to get all the couches in there, all the appliances in there, all the cooking and all the stuff that people need. Because again, a lot of these people that are traveling are going to be traveling nurses and other people that are looking at Airbnb for the access to the home. Keep in mind that there is nothing you can do about pets. You can try and have a pet policy. People are going to call them emotional support animals, even if they're not. So just embrace that pets are going to be there, especially dogs, especially if your place has a yard. Now, you can get away with it a little, you can be a little more strict if you're talking about rooms, but when we're talking about whole houses, half of the people that are going to be visiting are going to want a house rather than a suite or something else, specifically because of dogs. Just be mindful of the rules and fines and things that you can do when it involves emotional support animals, and generally tread lightly on that, because there are quite a few people that have done Airbnbs and VRBOs that have gotten in trouble for trying to charge for animals being there, and then turns out they're emotional support animals, all that kind of fun stuff. So get the whole place furnished, get it nice. I always recommend stuff that you can replace easily, that you can clean easily across the board, whether it is, again, the appliances, the couch, everything else. You need to assume that everything's going to get dirty, everything's going to get torn up, and that's okay. That's the whole purpose. That's why you're able to charge so much, right? Once you get all of that stuff furnished and all ready to go, get photos and get your place documented well, okay? Paint it in a good light, make it look pretty. Again, we're going to share screen again here. But when we are, what's that doing? When we are doing Airbnbs, people are going to be comparing you to everybody else. And again, in Thousand Oaks, there's a lot of competition. We've about doubled the number of homes. So, in the wintertime, you can get away with having a crummier looking listing. But right now, the better your place looks, the more you can charge, the more booked up you'll be. So, professional photography, professional everything, make it look nice, make it, set up nice. Look at what good listings are doing and look at what bad listings are doing. Because again, not every single home is going to be absolutely crushing it. Like this isn't a fantastic example, right? I mean, the first picture kind of scares you off. If you're trying to figure out how to make a listing look good or look bad, you can always ask your realtor. You can always go through my other streams and videos on why isn't my listing selling. But in general, make this look as good as you can. And in your property descriptions down here, you want to keep in mind that, we're on the internet, we're using keywords. So, desirable Ocean Drive, Silver Strand Beach. We're looking for words to throw in here that people are looking for to make them really happy. And we want to try to make these descriptions as short and concise as we can so that people actually read them, while also featuring that we have a barbecue, right? Ocean as your backdrop, all that kind of fun stuff. The more that you market and do this right, the higher you're going to rank and the more you're going to get your unit rented out. Because again, keep in mind, while the average 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom in Thousand Oaks has an average gross revenue of $78,000, the top 10% make closer to $104,000, $110,000. And there's not really any significant difference in the quality of the building. That is all in the customer service, in the reviews, in just generally doing a better job marketing it. On that same note, when you first start, you want to charge less money, okay? You want to get people in there. You want to get good reviews. Those good reviews will help you grow your business and will help everything take off. I know a lot of people get into Airbnbs. Let's close this really quick. I know a lot of people that get into Airbnbs and then they basically get really frustrated because they don't have complete success in the first month or two. The first month or two, this is a business. Think of it as a brand new hotel. No one's getting completely busy with no reviews and no track record. So it's going to take a little while to build your reputation. So especially for the first month, 3 months, it might be good to lower your rates relatively low to get people in there, get the good reviews. But once you've gotten the reviews and things are starting to get moving, then you can start pricing your unit relatively dynamically. And by dynamically, I mean prices are going to change over time. Some people like to use certain platforms such as, where do we go? Revenue management, share, such as Price Labs, and this will dynamically change the price from day to day for you. It'll help you kind of come up with the best price every single day for your unit. But if you decide not to do that and you decide just to use Airbnb for its dynamic pricing it has on the platform, there's nothing wrong with that. It works quite well as well, just not quite as well. You'll leave a little bit of money on the table a lot of the time. So lots and lots of ways to be dealing with the pricing. But again, when you're starting out, you don't want to focus on making $1 million on day zero. You want to focus on growing your business. Pricing aside, you're going to have a lot of stuff going on here. Every single time, hold on, let's close this up. Every single time we get a tenant, whatever you want to call it, tenant out, we need to go through, we need to clean, and they're going to break stuff, and they're going to use stuff, and there's going to be maintenance involved and all kinds of stuff going on. We need to build your team, okay? You're going to need a lot of great people. One of the first and most important is going to be a cleaner, some kind of maid cleaning service, whatever it is. They have to go through at the end of every single service before the next group goes through. They need to be really good at being on time. They need to be pretty flexible because you might have all kinds of different days that people are moving in. And if you're, getting a tenant out and then getting the new tenant in on the same day or the next day, you have a very fine window that you need to get your cleaning crew in there to get everything maintained. On that same token, you need handymen because anything that can be touched will be broken. Doorknobs, sinks, anything that people can mess with, they will break it. So you need a handyman around that can fix out those light bulbs and get all those little things taken care of. Pest control, super, super important, especially here in Southern California. I used to be a licensed pest control technician. You're going to get rats. You're going to get termites. That's every single house ever. Ants, super, super common. All kinds of other creepy crawlies, super common. And that will lead to bad reviews and just generally not a good time for your folks taking a visit. So you want a regular pest control service with a good company. Again, I've got all kinds of recommendations for these. If your home has a pool, you need a pool guy. They need to come out regularly, make sure it's all running good, make sure it's all clean. When it comes to should you get a pool or not, it's a totally separate discussion. I'm on the fence about it, but some people insist you have to have a pool because it's a vacation home. For us, Ventura County, people aren't really coming here for vacation for pools as often. I'm not going to say never, but it doesn't seem to be as big of a draw. The last thing you're going to really, really need is going to be lawn maintenance, folks. We got to get your lawn maintained. It's a little bit easier if you are putting in turf and stuff like that, but we still need to make sure the outside looks pretty. And we need to have a contractor for when the big stuff does break, because eventually you're going to need to get that roof replaced. Eventually the HVAC is going to need work, all that kind of fun stuff. We want to automate your process as much as you can. One of the biggest things you will notice with an Airbnb is that people want quick response. Okay, if they're talking to or reaching out to multiple Airbnbs, the one that responds first gets the business. So you want to come up with some kind of system that people can text into, call into, whatever, that you can respond quickly. If this is your full-time job, that's really easy, right? If it's not your full-time job, it can be really hard. So there are a lot of different platforms and programs that will help you with this, but you want to make sure that you're highly responsive. It's going to make a big difference in your business. And once you get all that put together, now you're up and running. The biggest thing at that point is going to be to just operate your business and optimize it. Okay. So nothing is going to be perfect out the gate. We're going to learn a lot as we go, right? We're going to get this Airbnb and run it and then go, oh my gosh, I didn't realize we need this. Or this seemed like a good idea at the time. It's going to be messed up. So it's something you need to be constantly looking at and tweaking. But once you get it all set up and running, as long as you have your system set up and your team built, then it becomes a lot less work going forward. So this is a tremendous amount of work and investment out the gate. But again, once it's running, it's a lot easier, especially if you pick the right people. So that's more or less everything you need to know to get started in Airbnb. If you are thinking about getting an Airbnb, please reach out. We got the website and all kinds of other stuff here for you to reach out to me. But in general, if you have any questions, put them in the comments, and I'll catch you guys soon.